Greetings, fellow programmers. My name is Pavel. I'm here with a C# exercise from the book Visual C# 2012 How to Program. This is chapter 8, exercise 20, called Total Sales. We are going to be using a lot of rectangular arrays, or 2D arrays, or two-dimensional arrays, whatever you want to call them. So here's what we are going to be doing. We're going to be using a rectangular array to solve the following problem. A company has 3 salespeople, 1 to 3, who sell 5 different products, 1 to 5. Once a day, each salesperson passes in a slip for each type of product sold. Each slip contains the following: the salesperson number, the product number, and the total dollar value of that product sold that day. Thus, each salesperson passes in between 0 and 5 sales slips per day. Now assume that the information from all of the slips for last month is available. Write an app that will read all the information for last month's sales and summarize the total sales by salesperson and by product. All totals should be stored in rectangular array sales. And after processing all the information for last month, display the results in tabular format. This is the important part, with each column representing a particular salesperson and each row representing particular product. They want us to do cross total each row to get the total sales, so we will have a total sales for each row as well as total sales for each column. So that's basically the row will represent the total sales for a product for the month, and column will represent total sales for each salesperson. So first, let me show you the final output. So this is what the output will look like. If you have product 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and employee number 1, 2, and 3, in each column represents the sales for each employee for each individual product. And here you can see that we have the total sales per product. Basically each row is being summarized, and then we have total per each employee. So like the employee number 1, the column number 1, the total for the employee number 1 sales, total for employee 2 and employee 3. So we will be doing basically this is the output. Now all the information, all the numbers are coming from a file, from a text file that looks like this. It's basically just 3 by 5 kind of grid with numbers. So the column is employee number 1, this is product number 1, product number 2, 3, 4, and 5, and this is employee number 2 and the sales for product number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and finally obviously employee number 3 and his sales for product number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we will be totaling each row and we will be totaling each column. Alright, so let's get to do some coding. Now the first thing to note, I have my sales.txt file in my debug folder. So, and again, it simply shows the numbers. So the first thing to note is that the sales.txt file is in my debug folder here. So we need to obviously read it. So I'm gonna read it all into one string. I'll just call it file equals system.io.file.read. I'm gonna read all text, and I'm reading it from sales.txt. Now this exercise is all about the array, so I'm not gonna be spending any time showing how to read file properly. You know, obviously you would use some try catch, you would validate to make sure that the file is actually exists, that it can be open and all that. But we know that it, in this case, it exists, and all we do is process it. So let's just concentrate on our arrays, and the first array is going to be an integer array, and it's gonna be called sales. And if you remember the file that I showed you, it has 5 rows and 3 columns. 5 rows for 5 products and 3 columns for 3 employees. So it's gonna be a 2D array with indexes with 5 rows and 3 columns, so 5 by 3. I'm gonna create an integer count, which I will later be used to keep track of the indexes within the array, and also integer row total and integer column total. So this will be basically keeping track of our rows and columns, obviously. So let's move the data into delimited array, and to do it we'll simply use a string array. I'll call it delimited, and we will split the file that is a string. We will split it by the comma, because if you look at the file, each number again is separated by a comma, so that's our delimiter. So at the end of this operation we will have a string array called delimited with each individual number already. Well, there'll be actually a string, because this is a string array. We will have to convert them to integers later. Alright, so now we have that. We can move file data into 2-dimensional array. Now we can create our grid, so to speak. We can create a 5 by 3 array, and for that we will do for integer, I'll just use var r equals 0. R is less than, we have 5 rows, so 5, and r plus plus. And the inside array will be another for loop, since this is 5 by 3 array. So this one will be with c equals 0, and c is less than 3, because it's 5 by 3 array. This is the array we are trying to populate with the numbers from the file. So we basically want to have these numbers just as they are. This will be index 1, index 0, 0, index 0, 1, 0 to index 1, 0, this one, and so forth. So we'll do C++, I forgot, and let's populate our array. So it's sales, that's what we call it, sales of the index of R and C. So in this case the first index would be index of 0, 0. We will pass the first number to it, and since this is stored as a string into our delimited array, we need to convert to integer, and we need to convert it because we are going to be using calculations. My IntelliSense seems to die on me, and we're converting the delimited, and here is my count. My count is set to 0 at the beginning. Remember, this is just a regular array. This is a 2-dimensional array, so I'm populating it with 0, with index 0, 1, and 2 within this inside loop, and then I'll reset it back to 0. I'm sorry, not reset it back to 0. I'll increase it. Except I'll increase it right after I populate it, not after the for loop count plus plus. So it comes over here and it gets, alright, what's the first index? Index 0. That would be basically, okay, let me show you. The delimited array basically looks like this. Just one row of numbers. So this is index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, and so forth. So when we come over here, that's why we have the count. So we populated, we are populating 2D array from a regular array. So that's why we have our index represented with a count and increase for the next iteration. So that way we'll reach the end of the file when we reach the end of this complete loop. Alright, so let me reverse that because this is our text file that we'll need. So now this is actually populating our array, and we can actually do something like you know what, I'm not gonna show you how that it actually works, because I'm gonna show you first how to populate the tabular array, or how to display it in tabular format. And so I'm gonna go display the data in tabular format with totals for rows and columns. Alright, so first thing, we need to do some kind of headers for each column. So we'll do console dot write line, and to format it, I don't want to start right in the corner because there will be a bunch of numbers. So basically I want to put employee number 1 above the first column, employee number 2 above the second column, and so forth. So I will do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 spaces for now. Well, let's see if that's gonna work. Employee 1, 1, 2, 3, employee 2, 1, 2, 3, employee 3, and then we will have the total sales per product. This is gonna be the total sales for each row that we are calculating. So and to do that, once again, our trusty for loop. Once again, it's with r equals 0, r is less than 5, and r plus plus. And here we start outputting each row. When I want to put before I output the number for each row, the first number, I want to output kind of the header for the row as well. So I'm gonna output console dot write, not write line, sorry, just write, because I'm gonna be continually writing. I'm gonna write the header, then I'm gonna write the first number, then the second number, third number, and then the total, and then I'll go to the next row. If I use a write line, I would be writing into columns. So, but I'm writing into a row, so I need to do console.write. And the header could be something like product, and then we will output. Let's format it as a number, and the product will simply say the product number. It's product number 1, 2, and 3. So instead of hard coding it somehow, which we cannot even do it within the loop, the r plus 1, r starts from 0, so 0 plus 1 is 1, so we'll simply say product 1, then in the next iteration it says product 2, and so forth. So this is the header for the row, and now we can do the inside loop for var c equals 0, c is less than 3, and c plus plus. And here we'll output the actual numbers. So we will do console dot write, again a write because we continue writing on the same line. And let's format it somehow. 1, 2, 3, 4, I guess. Let's do 0, and this is the currency. We are displaying the numbers, but in currency formatting. And I want 2 decimal places, so C2. And I'll output the sales for the indexes R and C. That's the first number I'm outputting. So I'm outputting product. Basically, it will say product 1, and they say After that is output 1000, but formatted as dollars. So and it will output it with the spaces in between. So basically, it will output $1,000, bunch of spaces, $2,000, bunch of spaces, $1,100, and now we also need to output the total to calculate the total sales per product, which is the total for each row. So over here we'll do the row total, and that's the total sum of 1,000, 2,000, and 1,100. So it should in our program it should say 4,100, and then in next row it will be calculating the sum of these three numbers and so forth. So total row, we will increase it to sales.r.c. So we will basically add all these numbers together. It will read the first number, add it to total row, then it will read this number, add it to it, so it will be 3,000, and then it will read the last number and add it to it, so it would be 4,100. So at the end of the in this inner loop, at the end we will have the total for the row, the first row. So now we can display that, but we have to display it after the loop ends. But we still have to use the console.write, because we still are writing in the same line. And again, let's just format it with a bunch of spaces at the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't know how many yet. We'll see how it looks. And I want to format it again in currency. And what I'm formatting is the total row. That's what I'm outputting. Actually, it's a row total. Okay, so now we have it output. Now we have to reset it back, because now we will need to calculate the next row, the total for these rows. So we don't want to keep adding to it. We just want to calculate not a total sum of all numbers, but just each row. So we need to reset it. The row total equals 0. So, and now we move to the next line. So we will do console.write line. That will kind of end the output into this line and move the cursor to the next one. Alright, well, let's run it. Let's see what we get. Let me run it again. Oh, it's actually surprisingly almost okay. I need to move those spaces they're a little off. This one's alright, but the employees are a little off. But you have it here. Employee 1, 2, 3, and total sales. You have the product 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have the numbers, so you can verify that they match. Let's say the last row is 1,036, 1,065, 6,215. And we have the totals for each row displayed over here. So this is actually working okay right on the first try. I'm a little surprised myself. So now what we have to do is calculate we need to adjust the spacing, I guess, and we need to calculate the total for each of the columns now, for these three columns. That would give us total sales for each employee. This gave us the total sales for each product 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now we calculate the columns, which is the total sales for each employee. So well, before I do that, let me just adjust the formatting. I think if I move this 2 more spaces, maybe one here and one here, let's see if that's gonna work. Oh, there you have it, right on the first try again. So it's nicely formatted now. Okay, so now we can concentrate on, we have the formatting correct, so now we can concentrate on the actual calculation of the columns. So I come over here and I will do calculate column totals. So again, we need some kind of a header. This is gonna be in a row, so this is gonna be a row header. But let me just see if I. The thing is that it's. Let me just run it again. I don't want the title, like the column. I mean the header right here. That would say something like total per employee, because it would be too long. So I would have to reformat it. I'm gonna split it in two lines. It will say total per, and on the next line it will say employee. So let's just do it that way. Console dot write line. So this one will say total per, and on the next line we will use console dot write again, because we are going to write into the same row all the totals for each employee. So it will say total per employee as the header for the row, and we will do the for loop, but this time we are calculating totals for columns, and there's 3 columns and 5 rows. So we did 5 by 3 before, because we were going row by row, but now we go column by column. So I'm going to start instead of the C or R equals 0 and is less than 5, in this case I'm gonna start with C equals 0 and C is less than 3, because there's 3 columns, and C plus plus. And the inner loop will be the bigger one, so this one will go the var R equals 0, R is less than 5. So this is going in reverse, because again we are calculating columns, and R plus plus. So inside this loop we will once again just display the totals. So I will do column, not capital, column total. Remember we had a row total to get the number, the total for each row, and we also have a column total which calculates the total for each column, obviously. So we will do the same thing, plus equals sales R and C, not C and R, R and C, because we are again we are skipping in the first iteration, we are skipping these 2 columns. So but we still technically read row by row, but that's why we have to reverse the instead of, if we start from C and R, but we are actually reading the opposite. We are only reading the first number of each row, and then we will read the second number of each row and third number of each row. All right, so sales R and C for the index, and let's do the console dot write, and let's format it a little bit, 1 2 3, and it's gonna be a currency with 2 decimal places, and it will be the column total that's gonna be displayed there. And just like we did with the row total, we have to reset it for the next column. So the column total equals now 0 after we calculated and displayed. We reset it for the next calculation. All right, so this is all. Let's run it. Let's see if we get it right. And we kind of did. Yeah, we got total per employee, and it calculated the columns, except I want this on the next line. So after this I will just do console dot write line, just so the press key instructions are on the bottom and not next to this. So let's get a calculator and see if we actually have the correct numbers. So 1000 plus 2500 plus 9877 6515 1036 20,928. So yeah, that's correct. So let's pick one row just to make sure that, let's say the number 4, so it's 6515 plus 6898 plus 6219, 19632, and that is correct too. So there you have it. Formatted output, calculating rows, calculating totals, displaying the data in a tabular format. So yeah, this is the exercise. Not a lot of code. It's all just trying to figure out where or what index of the array you currently are. That's all there is to it. You have to keep track of the indexes and kind of realize how the loops go through the file or through the arrays. They always go row by row. They never go like column. In order to do the column, you simply have to realize what numbers are you adding. Like in this case, you add in indexes 0, right? So that's why it's R and C, because R is the one that changes. So C is the in this case would stay as the 0. So when you go through the like I said, 0 0 is this number. This number is 10 20 30 40. So that is why we have R and C, because R is the number that keeps changing from 1 to 4. So that's the 1, or basically 0 1 2 3 4, but it's still the same index of 0 for each of them. So it's basically will pick only the first numbers. Now on the next iteration, C will change to 1, so now you will have indexes 1 0, which would be this one, then 1 1 1 I'm sorry, 2 1 3 1 4 1 and 5 1. So that's why C will remain constant through 5 iterations of the inner loop, while R will change with each iteration of the inner loop. So this is important to realize. With rows it's easier to do because that's the natural way of reading it, but with columns you kind of have to realize what numbers you're putting together. So yeah, I hope that helped you. I hope you liked the video. If you did, leave a like, leave a comment, share with your friends, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.